Hello, and welcome to another episode of Photographing Northumberland. Today I'm going to be walking to Hareshaw Linn, which is another of Northumberland's spectacular waterfalls. Along the way we pass through deciduous woodland, and it's autumn now when I'm recording this, so I'm hoping for some wonderful autumnal colour. Already I've seen some wonderful hawthorn bushes with lots of red berries on them, but I'm also hoping for fungi and interesting sort of autumnal fruits like that. It's a very easy walk from Bellingham town centre, which is just back that way. I've started from the official Northumberland National Park car park, and it's a walk of about a mile and a half, and it should normally take about half an hour, but because I'll be stopping to take photographs, it's probably going to be more like an hour and a half to get to the waterfall, and then obviously an hour and a half to get back. So follow me on the path as we head towards Hareshaw Linn. I've just stopped next to this hawthorn bush because it's just bursting with red autumnal berries, which I think could be a very interesting photographic subject. I'm going to shoot wide open, so a large aperture to minimise depth of field on a 200mm lens. That's partly to simplify the shot, the composition, but also it's actually quite breezy today, so the berries are just kind of bobbing about in the breeze. So I'm going to try and maximise my shutter speed, and to that end, obviously the large aperture helps, but I've also increased the ISO to ISO 1600. So hopefully that should sort of stop any movement and sort of freeze the berries in sort of mid-bob. So yeah, I'm going to take this shot now, turn the camera on, using very precise focusing, so I'm using a spot focusing technique here. So I just want to focus on one particular clump of berries and let everything else just drift into soft out of focusness. So this isn't Hareshaw Linn. Hareshaw Linn's a much bigger waterfall. This is about a mile from the Linn itself. However, it's still an interesting little waterfall, just accessed by steps coming down from a picnic area. And at the moment it looks great. I mean, there's a lot of water at the moment. There's autumn foliage sort of framing the waterfall, which looks great. So I'm going to get set up now and see what I can come up with. A lot of the trees don't seem to have leaves anymore. There was some high winds, some storms a few weeks ago, and I think that's probably caused most of the leaves to be blown off directly onto the path in this case. There are lots of leaves on the path, so I'm having to be very careful because it's quite muddy and quite slippery. But that said, there are still some wonderful examples as I'm walking along through the wood towards Hareshaw Linn, and I suspect I'll be stopping to shoot a few things on the way. There's certainly some wonderful silver birches which I've noticed. And the sun is just starting to poke out now, so I'm hoping I might even get some backlit leaves, and the backlighting helps to make fluorescent subjects like leaves, so it helps to really sort of saturate the colours. You cross Hareshaw Burn, which is just down there below me, 6 times in order to get to Hareshaw Linn. This is the first crossing, the first bridge, and from here it's probably about 10 or 15 minutes to get to Hareshaw Linn itself. That's if you're going to move on. So far I've been sort of meandering my way to this part, but I think I'm going to have to get a bit of a move on now, because the light is slowly starting to go, and obviously this being autumn now, the days are much shorter, with sunset roughly about 4:15 now. That said, on a good day, if you're here nice and early, it's worth stopping every so often. There are lots of little photographic opportunities on Hareshaw Burn, particularly at this time of year with the leaves on the rocks around you, and there are lots of little waterfalls as the water tumbles over the rocks themselves. So yep, I'm going to get on to the next bridge and then further on to Hareshaw Linn itself. Okay. Bridge number 2. Bridge number 3. Bridge 4. The 5th bridge. Bridge number 6. And that big waterfall behind the bridge here isn't actually Hareshaw Linn, but we're almost there. Just another 5 minutes walk until we can start shooting at the Linn itself. I'm at Hareshaw Linn now, and in my opinion it's the most spectacular waterfall in Northumberland. That's partly because of its size. It must be about 20-30 feet high at least, if not more. But it's also in this wonderful amphitheatre of rock. The waterfall has actually cut a gouge through that rock, dropping into the Hareshaw Burn below. It's actually starting to get quite dark now. It took longer to get here than expected because I kept stopping to shoot things on the way, and it's a late afternoon in autumn now. So it'll be very quick, shoot a few perhaps telephoto shots, a few wide angle shots, make something of the autumn colours. There are lots of leaves around the base of the rock, near the bottom of the waterfall. Make something of those possibly. And in terms of exposure, like I said, it's getting quite dark now, so I think shutter speeds are going to be naturally lengthy anyway, particularly if I use small apertures for a depth of field reason. So I'm going to be fairly quick here, I think. It's a place I know quite well. I've been to quite a few times before. Shoot a few things and then make my way back to the car, perhaps stopping along the way to see what I can spot before it gets too dark. Not long after finishing that piece to camera, it started raining quite heavily. So at that point I just gave up for the day and made my way back along the path, doing it in a far quicker time than it took to walk to Hareshaw Linn originally. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Photographing Northumberland, and that you'll tune in the next time I upload one of these videos. In the meantime, please share, like and subscribe.